And wonderful. Hello, Andy Schectman. How are you?
I am great. It's great to be here, Aaron. I'm sorry that we've had such a hard time connecting, but it's
Well,
good to
that's
be here.
okay.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The best things are always got some obstacles to get around, and
Ain't that the truth?
today was not one. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I was referred to you by Dr. Kia Pruitt, who is a wealth of knowledge on so many subjects, just about every one that there is. She's so incredibly knowledgeable. So I've heard her speak about you. I've seen your interview with her on her show, and she speaks about precious metals and the importance of all of that. And if I had a dime for every fact I know about precious metals, I'd be broke. So it's great. It won't be me dominating the conversation today, listeners. Thank you. It's a word edgewise, it should be called. But please, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do and how you started, and got some more questions.
Sure. Well, it's good to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Yeah, I've been doing this, Aaron, for 33 years. I started when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Started the company with my father.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain to you the one rule that he implemented before we started the company to give you an idea of what gold and silver, what precious metals mean to me. So, you know, many people talk about precious metals as being an investment, and I guess in some ways you could say that it is. Certainly, silver offers amazing potential, maybe the most undervalued asset on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It could be construed as an investment, but I've never looked at it that way. So, 19 years old. Wanted to be a baseball player, and at the University of Minnesota, and those dreams didn't work out with a knee injury, and
Oh,
started a company on a wing and a prayer with my father,
mm-hmm.
as someone who never even graduated college.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we sold our family's life insurance policies,
Mm-hmm.
and we borrowed $60,000 from a friend, my father's best friend at the time, whose middle name was Franklin. My dad's middle name is Miles.
Uh-huh.
We started in a one-room office, as a agent for the Swiss insurance industry. And I'll skip how that came about. That would take 10 minutes of time. But suffice it to say, at the time, we were the only Swiss insurance agent referral source in North America.
Wow.
And we represented the Swiss insurance industry.
Mm-hmm.
Realized very quickly that the same person who bought Swiss francs bought precious metals, and very rapidly um, transitioned into also a precious metals company. But when we started the company, my father said to me, look, there'll be one rule and only one rule, and I'd like you to be my partner in this endeavor. And, on a wing and a prayer, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
I said, one rule, I can deal with one rule. What's your one rule? And he said, well, you're going to buy something every 2 weeks, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's the only rule. I can live with that. That's cool. And although I've owned the company myself for 2 decades, and he's still my partner, although he's been retired for a very long time, he's still my father. I have honored my word to him.
Mm-hmm.
And for 33 years, I have never, ever missed a 2 week period,
Wow.
ever. Not
That's
once, but
amazing.
33 years
That's great.
where I've bought something.
Yeah.
What gold and silver represent to me are wealth,
Mm-hmm.
5,000-year-old plus wealth that has outlived German hyperinflation, outlived the Great Depression, outlived 2 world wars, and every pandemic, and still is immutable wealth. And long after the dollar bills that are in our wallets are hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian as an example of what used to
Right.
be,
Yeah.
gold and silver will still be immutable wealth. And so when we talk about what is gold and silver, to me, it is wealth. And it has been all the way back to biblical times,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're talking kings and queens and pharaohs and emperors, and anyone of nobility owned precious metals, not as an investment, but as a form of immutable wealth that is able to be passed on through the generations. So from a springboard of where we go from here in this evening's discussion, to me, it is of wealth, and of wealth that takes on greater significance in times of uncertainty and of turmoil.
Mhm.
And it is for that reason that you could call it insurance as well. Insurance against the craziness of our government, of the reckless monetary policies of the Federal Reserve, of massive money printing, irresponsibility, to say the least, and changing tides of historical significance, of the dollar perhaps losing its world reserve status via the petrodollar.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of things that are converging all at once. And so, yes, it takes on a role of insurance and of protection against crazy times. But most people only look at it in that light as, the sky's falling, you better own gold and silver. To me, it's not just that. And it's
Right.
there if that
Yeah.
happens. And history has proven that that does happen at times, and certainly when we least expect it. But more relevant, it's money that I know that when I pass it on to my children and their children and their children and their children in the year 3000, it's going to have great value, as it always has for the last 5,000 years. So that's the way that I look at gold and silver. We've been in business, as I mentioned, for 33 years. We've done over 8 billion in sales, starting from a loan from a friend and selling insurance policies. We've recently eclipsed 8 billion in sales. We've never had a customer complaint,
Wow.
ever.
Wow.
You won't find it on Google. We are one of only 27 United States Mint authorized resellers in the world, an honor we are supremely proud of. We have worldwide exclusives with BRICS in our storage programs that no one else has. I believe we are the envy of the storage industry for those folks who don't want to take physical possession. And although I moved to Florida a year and a half ago, I left my corporate entity and the majority of our back office in Minnesota, where I spent the first 50 years of my life, because it's the only state in America that regulates what is a federally non-regulated precious metals industry. So on top of our U.S. Mint accreditation, our Better Business Bureau A+ rating, our exclusives with BRICS, and never having a complaint, which I believe gives us the best reputation, hands down, in the industry, the state of Minnesota puts an exclamation point behind that with licensing, bonding, and accreditation that is not found anywhere else.
Wow. That is
So
amazing.
that's who we are.
That is really, really remarkable. You mentioned you're exclusive with BRICS.
BRICS, yes.
BRICS. Okay. What is BRICS?
BRICS is a storage facility. You know, the BRICS armored car trucks.
Okay.
They have facilities around North America where we have clients' metals segregated in their name, stored in a fashion that is unlike anything else in the industry. But look, you're always best served to take physical possession of your metal if you can.
Mhm.
There are people who will say if you don't physically own it, have it in your possession, you don't own it. And that's not really true, but I understand why they say that. Removal of counterparty risk is a big deal. And so you have a better likelihood of being ripped off by the system than you do by a burglar knowing you have metal in your house if hidden properly. So for those folks who don't want to leave it at home or are buying too much to feel comfortable with it at home, we have storage facilities through BRICS, which is the most respected name in the storage industry for over 100 years, or in the vaulted security space for the last 100 years, around North America for those folks. But yeah, always best to hold it yourself if you can.
That's our 6 o'clock alarm in the town. I don't know why this town does that, but they do. If you heard that, pardon for the interruption.
No, I didn't hear it, but that's kind of cool anyway.
Yeah.
You always know when it's 6 o'clock. Who needs a
sort of like, it's a little posturing to me. Like, is everybody being good?
Yeah.
Like, what are you
Big
doing?
Brother's here. Big Brother's watching.
That's right. That's right. So if someone wants to, because I'm hearing what you're saying, that it's not just like, it's threefold. It's insurance, it's wealth, and it's money, and it never depreciates in value. It never. So if someone were to start to accumulate this wealth and start maybe on a 2-week or every month or something, what would you suggest people do who don't have a lot of expendable income, but they want to start building something. I've heard of some companies, and you've got metals and they send it to you. Tell me what you would suggest for people to start to research and educate themselves on what the silver and metal market is, and what they should expect.
Well, I would tell them mostly to buy silver.
Okay.
Silver is vastly undervalued geologically and historically in its relationship to gold. In just about every metric to which you would compare silver against, it is historically undervalued, maybe the most undervalued asset on the planet. And the price of it is, and I don't want to go down this road because it's complex, and I know that this is not the audience we're talking to tonight, but
Mhm.
the price is managed on the futures market by a handful of very large banks. But what's very interesting and what is betraying the price is the massive drawdown of supply from the world's commodity exchanges, which have never really been thought of as entities that deliver physical metal. But indeed, the London Metals Exchange has, as in the case of silver, the lowest amount of silver that it's ever had in the history of the exchange. It's a 140-year-old exchange. And they have just tiny, tiny, tiny amounts there that are making it seem that if the numbers continue in terms of the drawdown by mid 2023, it would have no more silver left. The COMEX exchange here in the United States, where the price of gold and silver are set globally, at least during New York hours, has witnessed a 75% drawdown in all of its silver over the last 18 months in its registered category, that being the category of bars that are available for delivery. And we're seeing massive deliveries every month in gold and silver by the most sophisticated, well-funded, well-informed, influential traders on the planet, who are draining the market using the suppressed price to run cover or doing it. Listen to my podcasts. I do half a dozen a week. I'm interviewed by people like yourself. I try to keep everyone abreast and updated with what's happening on a week by week, day by day basis.
Mm-hmm.
Educate yourself. The internet has a plethora of information.
Mm-hmm.
And again, look at gold and silver as wealth, not as an investment. And it makes it easier to make your choices when you're looking at it in that capacity. So focus on the number of ounces more than anything, and try not to be penny wise and pound foolish, meaning buying a very large bar in favor of, let's say, 100-ounce bar versus 100 1-ounce rounds or coins.
Mm-hmm.
If the savings is huge, you could think of the 100-ounce bar. But if it's not that much, you're better off having greater utility and versatility and liquidity with 100 1-ounce pieces, which give you 100 transactions,
Right.
versus one 100-ounce brick, which is about the size of a mason brick, which are very cool, but
Right.
you lose the liquidity. It's like buying a can of tuna fish at Costco. It's going to be this big versus one at the local grocery store, which is that big.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time and a place for both.
Mm-hmm. I see. So some of these things you're talking about, like the truth of what the actual market is, you used a word, did I hear something somewhere like spoofing the numbers of what, isn't there, aren't there sites, if you look up what the values are, that they're not the actual values, that those are sort of being manipulated so that people don't buy it? Is that?
No, spoofing has to deal with, that's a commodity term, where orders are placed and then which tell the marketplace that these large orders are being placed, either buying or selling, and then they're immediately retracted. So it's making the market believe it's going one way when actually it's not, and it's very manipulative and it's illegal. And there were some traders for JP Morgan who were just put into prison for spoofing the metals market, making huge amounts of money,
Right.
and doing so in a very illegal, manipulative fashion. So it's just basically high frequency computers that submit a big trade, the market sees it, and then they pull it back. The market doesn't see that. The market acts upon those trades as prices are rising or falling, and then it's pulled back. It distorts the reality. It's very manipulative. It's very illegal.
Yeah, sounds it. So if I bought some silver and I have it in my possession, let's say I start buying these coins maybe on a month to month basis, it doesn't matter, you're saying, if it's better to have smaller increments rather than one larger increment.
I don't, whether you're playing poker, driving on a crowded highway, investing or living, you can never have too many exits or options or
Right,
outs or,
right.
utility is always worth something over bulk. I mean, bulk is good, but not if you need versatility, utility.
Mhm.
There's a time for it. Like you could argue that I have coins coming out of my ears after buying them for every 2 weeks for
Right.
33 years. So buying 100-ounce bars in my case isn't a problem. I have the utility taken care of.
Mhm.
But someone who's just getting into the market who wants the biggest bang for the buck could cross that penny wise, pound foolish Rubicon of, yeah, I wanted to get as much as I could, but now I'm stuck with this giant bar. And, silver's at $50 an ounce and the bar's worth, all this money, $5,000. What am I going to do? Because I only need $500. Well,
Mhm.
that's the problem. You could sell 10 coins and easily have your 500, or you sell one bar for 5,000, get your 500, and then what? Now you have 4,500 you never wanted to sell. So
Right.
that's just kind of a generalistic view of it, but I
Mhm.
think utility is worth something.
Mhm.
Flexibility is worth something.
Right.
And what does it mean to you? That's a personal decision. But yeah, I think you can never have too many options in life, too many choices.
I agree.
That's what Baskin Robbins was,
Yes.
from,
31
31
flavors.
choices. That's right. Well,
Right.
it's no fun going to a place that just has vanilla and chocolate.
Right.
Yeah, you'll eat it, but I
Exactly.
want one
Big
of the
restaurant. We
31.
just do rotisserie chicken.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so how does one then access or cash in or implement use their silver and gold? We're trying to eliminate the fiat and digital things that are going on.
Well,
So
maybe you have the ability to trade, maybe you don't. Maybe you have to go in and sell it and go into the digital currency if that's the currency of the realm. Maybe you have to sell it and go into fiat, but it allows you to stay outside of the system until such time that
right,
you need to be in the system. It is um, outside the matrix. It doesn't mean you can't go into it. Maybe someone will be willing to trade with you for it. Sure, maybe not. Either
yeah,
way, the result is the same thing. It gives you something that is non-dollar denominated um, that gives you the liquidity, the flexibility, but also immunity from what's happening with the erosion of the currency and the potential massive erosion of it.
mhm,
And if you've watched some of my videos with Dr. Pruitt, you'll know I've talked a lot about the BRICS nations and what's happening with the potential loss of the petro standard. And this is real. It's very
yeah,
real and it's very frightening. And the ultimate end game, if we lose the reserve status, is of a dollar that collapses globally. And when all those dollars come cascading home, because since 1974, every country on the planet has had to own dollars to buy oil. That was the deal we made with the Saudi kingdom and with OPEC. Those
right,
deal times are changing. Saudi Arabia is moving vastly away from the U.S. They're joining the BRICS nations. They're being protected by Russia. They're striking deals with Xi Jinping, who just spent the last 4 days in Saudi Arabia. They're moving away from the West.
mhm,
They just came out and said that their biggest trading partner this year and for the next 50 is China. And so when you talk about losing the reserve status, if they come out and say we're going to open up oil purchases in other currencies or the new BRICS currency, not dollars, not just dollars, or maybe not dollars at all, just the BRICS currency, which we're joining, and all 13 OPEC producing countries are on the Chinese Belt Road Initiative, which is the largest infrastructure project in human history. All of the BRICS countries are in it. The US isn't. If we lose that and the dollars get dumped, the dollar collapses. The
mhm,
byproduct of that inflation is spiked interest rates.
right,
You have to have massively higher interest rates if your currency is massively depreciating in order to compensate for the loss of the value of the currency.
okay,
And when interest rates spike, everything in this country that makes people feel wealthy is inversely correlated to that.
Mhm.
Stocks, bonds, and real estate.
Mhm.
Rates rise, all three collapse.
Mhm.
And it's real.
Yeah.
So owning precious metals is not about getting wealthy. If you own enough of it, you will be.
Mhm.
It's about protecting yourself from what is a global shift. And I would argue it's coming quickly. So that's
It's
why I think it's so important to own gold and silver. It is for no other reason than that it is wealth that has outlived all of the world's calamities and is still standing. You can't say that about much of anything else.
right. I saw an amazing graphic that someone was trying to explain. I think this is Goldbusters UK or something. I'm not sure. They do podcasts, and they described if you brought in your gold and what it's worth, and it just blew my mind that this is the reality of what's happening. So how many countries are on BRICS? How many countries are gold backed?
Well, the BRICS nations, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa.
Mhm.
But I can give you a list of the countries that have either applied or are applying.
Mhm.
The list is fairly exclusive. I mean, inclusive. It's big. Let me
Mhm.
see here. So here are the new countries that have already announced they're going to join: Algeria, Argentina, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Nicaragua, Turkey, Indonesia, Senegal, Nigeria, Afghanistan, Egypt, Kazakhstan, and Saudi Arabia. Then you have BRICS Plus. These are the next countries. You have Argentina, you have Nicaragua. I already mentioned Algeria, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Nigeria, Senegal, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Thailand. And then the next group that is on the list is Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, Bolivia, Chile, Cuba, Ecuador, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Azerbaijan, Mongolia, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam.
So
They're
nowhere we've
all,
ever
every one
participated.
of them have expressed interest in joining. Um, and then you look at the Shanghai Corporation Organization, which
Okay.
is all intertwined: China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Belarus, Cambodia, Kuwait, Maldives, Mongolia, Myanmar, Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Turkmenistan, and Qatar. So, and then you look at all the countries on the Belt Road Initiative. There's about 150 of them. It's the most ambitious infrastructure project ever attempted in human history, where
Amazing.
China is connecting Asia, Africa, parts of Europe, and South America. All of these countries are leaving the West, all of them.
Yeah.
They are all joining against the Western hegemony, against the Western hypocrisy, against Western sanctions. But what's going to make it work is the Russian finance minister came out publicly and said, we are issuing a BRICS currency, a new one, that will be a reserve currency, and we will have it pegged to commodities. Many people believe that's why all of these countries have been massively accumulating gold. And in 2019, the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank in Switzerland, quietly reclassified gold as the world's only other tier one reserve asset. Let me say that one more time slowly for you. Since 1944, the only tier one reserve asset, means a riskless asset, has been US dollars or treasuries. Collateral. If I
Okay.
lend you $1 million, you give me a briefcase of $1 million in $100 bills. That's tier one. There's no risk to me. I don't care if you don't pay me back. I got your cash.
Right. Okay.
Riskless.
Okay.
The only other tier one asset in the world is now gold, and the Bank of International Settlements did that in 2019. So remember all the countries I mentioned to you that
Yeah.
are going to join BRICS? Here is a most recent listing of their gold holdings as a percentage of their total reserves. Venezuela, 82%, Uzbekistan, 65%, Kazakhstan, 63%, Bolivia, 55%, Lebanon, 49%, Belarus, 40%, Turkey, 29%, Pakistan, 29%, Kyrgyzstan, 22%. These countries that want to join BRICS are massively accumulating what? The world's only other tier one reserve asset other than US dollars. They all want to join and form this coalition against the Western hypocrisy that's been centuries old, whether
Right.
you're talking here or the United Kingdom or any of the Western European countries that ruled the world before.
Mm-hmm.
And these countries are saying we've had enough. Now, in and of themselves, they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Combined, their GDP is way bigger than ours. Their military presence is way stronger than ours. They have hypersonic ICBM nuclear warheads. We don't have. They have a stronger military, a bigger economy, and a coalition of people that are rallying against this Western hypocrisy
Mm-hmm.
and hegemony. But that isn't enough to make it work. Pledging of gold to a new currency is how it will work. And how do you show the world that everyone pledged the gold? Well, for the last 3 years, the Chinese have, on the Belt Road Initiative, all of the contracts have settled with the new digital yuan. They also used it at the Winter Olympics in Beijing, and it works. And they've done over 25 billion in successful trades since the inception. So what better way to roll out a central bank digital currency than on behalf of the BRICS nations? And all of the countries that join pledge gold, which we've already been told by the Russian finance minister will be a basket of local currencies, they call it, the countries that are in it, plus commodities. He didn't say specifically gold, he said commodities. My feeling is it will be dominated by gold. But to have gold pegging the new currency gives everyone equal footing at the table, equal say. Everyone put the same amount of gold in. And how do you know it's there? The distributed ledger technology shows you the veracity of it, the immutability of it. Maybe they have it held at in a vault in Switzerland and it is audited by the big three. I don't know the minutia, but I can tell you that's how it will work. And this is how you beat the West. It's not by firing off missiles that
Right.
that guarantee mutual destruction. It's you beat them by issuing a currency that is backed by commodities, not by debt instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at all of the countries that are joining, it represents over 80% of human population.
Yes, I was hearing that. Am I
So
hearing?
it's
Yeah.
real.
Mm-hmm.
It's real.
Did I hear something about that? The U.S. dollar is actually only being used now by the Union of Canada, United States, and Mexico.
Oh, I think it's being used on a much larger scale. It still is the petrodollar, but it is certainly losing its appeal. And many of the countries around the world are shedding it by buying things like gold and other commodities and other currencies, and they're forging relationships. Russia and India just announced that India just announced they're going to only use rupee in exchange for fuel with and energy with Russia.
Okay.
And so they're all moving away from using the dollar, which has been the sole settlement currency for 50 years. They're
Mm-hmm.
all using their own currencies. They're basically doing this to the US, and it's kind of like a roll of toilet paper. When you first have it, it moves very slowly. But towards the end, when you're starting to see the cardboard, it starts to spin much faster.
Yeah.
And we can see the cardboard if you look closely right now.
Great analogy. We could see the cardboard. Yes.
Yeah, well, and that's what it feels like to me. Like it's spinning
Yeah.
much faster right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. What can you tell me? And I'm not familiar with the Belt Road Initiative. What that is?
It's the largest infrastructure project in human history
Mm-hmm.
ever. It's the old Silk Road.
Oh.
And it's Asia's attempt, China's attempt to connect all of these countries. It in and of itself is 50, 60, 70% of human population, 40 to 45% of global GDP. It keeps growing, the number of people that are joining it. But it's a massive infrastructure. If you Google it, you'll see of bridges, railways, roads, maritime channels. It'll only be patrolled by military and
Mm-hmm.
by use for commerce. It's the
Mm-hmm.
Panama Canal on steroids.
Okay.
And it will allow all, and there's something called the North-South Corridor, which is between Iran and Russia. All of these trade routes that are being done are void of US and Western participation and void of the US dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And they are connecting the world on on a basis, on a commerce basis. But the patrolling of it will be done by military. So it's not, people aren't going to be driving these roads, or it's only for commerce and military. But it is a massive industrialization of parts of Africa and South America that have never been industrialized. And so, you're talking huge, huge infrastructure being built by the Chinese. And while we waste our time and our money sending it to the Ukraine in a battle that is not ours, I feel bad for the Ukrainians. I feel bad for anyone caught in war, but it is not our war. And it is not our job to bankrupt our children further by paying for it.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And while we're doing that, a country like China is making friends and building bridges and building infrastructures, while we're screwing the pooch for generations to come.
I see these videos of homeless everywhere in UK and Ireland, and all of the everybody's getting all.
How about San Francisco? I mean,
I just saw a video of DC, the capital's right there, and there's nothing but tents. There's tents, and we're sending.
So, but instead we should send 70-80 billion dollars to the Ukraine.
Right.
Instead of building our infrastructure, you'd be better off taking that $80 billion and dividing it by the number of homeless and the number of people in this country, and giving everyone right to their wallet, like we did during COVID, which created all sorts of other problems. But I digress. Bottom line,
but only because we weren't ready for it, because people have been so sort of enslaved and brainwashed into thinking you've got to go trade your time for these pieces of paper with pyramids on the back, to quote a friend. It's insane. So I absolutely, you had sent me a price list a few weeks ago, and I wanted to look into that. I do want to start buying some coins. So is there I see some of these coins that are really pretty. I'm a photographer. I love the really pretty ones, and maybe they have like a little gem in them. Is there any difference between?
Yeah, I mean, that now when you're buying pretty with gems and stuff like that, you're buying things that are more for aesthetics, more for esoteric value. Whereas I think you're better served buying things. In this case, it's like anything. You need to build a core position.
Yeah.
And that core position, it's kind of like building a hot fudge sundae. You need to have a bowl of vanilla ice cream first. There's nothing wrong with hot fudge, cherries, and sprinkles.
Yeah.
But you don't want to fill the bowl. I mean, my youngest daughter may fill the bowl with cherries and sprinkles and then a little bit of ice cream.
Yeah.
But that's not how you build a financial pyramid. And I think you do it with vanilla ice cream first, and then a little bit of hot fudge and maybe a couple sprinkles. But we focus on coins and bars that will be well known world over with no subjectivity. When you get into coins with gems on them and painted and this and that, that's one of the neat things about doing this. Well, what starts out as protecting yourself can turn into a hobby very quickly. There's a million different coins, and stuff like this. Well, this is a $20 gold piece that was used as money prior to 1933 in the United States.
Right.
It was interchangeable for this $20 gold.
I was going to ask, wasn't the $10 bill, it used to say in exchange for
they all do. It says payable to the bearer on demand in gold coin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they replace that with "In God We Trust."
Yeah.
So that was money. Money, now it's currency. Back then it was money. It was backed by gold. And you could only print as much as gold as there was gold backing it. Well, that gives it value. When you have the ability by immoral, corrupt politicians to just print the crap out of the currency, it loses its value rapidly. And every dollar that is printed is basically stealing from those in circulation its value.
Right.
So, and that's what inflation is all about. And that's why they went away from gold, because gold was the anchor to the system. Whereas right now it's just backed by the government's ability to tax and throw you in prison for not paying your taxes.
Wow. I know, which is, it's all fictitious. It's all out of thin air. It's all meaningless and backless and everything. This is just such a wealth of information, no pun intended or pun intended. I'd love to have you back. I only have a few minutes left, but this was such a good start overview. Where can someone find Your milesfranklin.com, right?
Yeah, our new website we're actually launching it amongst our office on Friday.
Okay.
Within the next week to 10 days, it'll be out to the public. Our current website does not allow for online purchasing.
Mhm.
It doesn't really show you much in the way of pricing, but it's very much rich with information. The
Okay.
new website will be really cool. Got all the bells and whistles, and you will be able
Great.
to purchase online. If someone wanted to get a current price list,
Mhm.
they certainly could do that. Send us an email at info@milesfranklin.com. Say you're interested in a price list, ask any questions. If you want to be contacted by one of my staff, that we can do that too. And they'll answer your questions and with no obligation, and make sure you get as good of a price as you'll find anywhere in North America from a company that's never had a customer complaint. We'll make sure that people listening tonight do not represent that first complaint.
That's amazing. I don't know who can say that. I don't know what other company can ever say they don't have one single complaint. Um, Andy, thank you so very much for giving us all this very helpful information. I'd love to have you back if you'd like to. And I would.
Anytime.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much again. And I'll put all of your information in the in my show more information listed there. And thank you so very much once again, Andy.
Pleasure is mine. All the best. You happy holidays, and look forward to chatting with you again down the road.
Yes, you too. Keep up the great work.
You too.
Thank you. Okay, bye.